we go. Welcome to the new Signagelive live stream, which will be happening Thursday, 3 p.m. BST for the foreseeable future. One of the reasons that we're setting up this new streaming session is for a little bit more communication and just a really open-ended conversation around what you want to talk about and discuss. Today, we're going to come at you with a specific topic, which is the broadcast player. And obviously, given the current environment and this kind of unprecedented time, we wanted to deliver something to you that's going to be really beneficial at this time. So we're going to talk about that and discuss it. But obviously, as this session progresses, after that initial conversation, we're more than happy to take this to wherever you want to talk. So if it's not specifically on the broadcast player, there'll be time for that a little bit later on when we talk about the QA and kind of any questions that you may have. So hopefully that will make sense. Apologies if the green screen is a little bit kind of trickly in the background. It's just a bit dark outside and normally have a little bit more natural light to assist with that. So grab a drink, let's go through the broadcast player and help you understand exactly where we hope this will be beneficial to you. So obviously, we're aware that today's session, there could be any number of people on here in terms of, whether you're a reseller, whether you're a customer using the platform already or interested in the platform as new. So we're going to keep this as broad as possible just to make sure we cover off as many different aspects as we possibly can. So we're going to cover that. And if I look over on this side, it's because I've got all the chat running here. So if there are any questions or anything, I'll be able to answer that as we go. So we're going to go over and share my screen here. Hopefully you're able to see that. What this is that we're looking at right now is an example of a broadcast player actually delivering content right now. The benefit and the luxury of doing this live means that I can actually go up here and grab this URL and I can paste it into chat. So if any of you would like to watch this actually happen live, you'll be able to click on that link and load exactly what I'm seeing right now. So this is an example of the broadcast player and how it actually delivers the content. We're going to go and change that today and actually make changes to this screen, and you'll see it update live on those links. So I'd be really interested to know if you're running that, if that's working for you. There's only a few exceptions in terms of browsers we know aren't supported this. One of those is Internet Explorer, but obviously the most common used ones such as Chrome and others are supported. And obviously this is something that we're doing quite early in advance, and we wanted to release this out. I'll go into that in a bit more detail when we actually go into the proper presentation here. So we're going to get started with the presentation, and I'll load that up for us now. And we'll take you through a bit of an overview of what the broadcast player is and what we hope for it to be. And then at the end of that, we'll play around with the broadcast player a little bit as well. So to get started, what is the broadcast player? So in essence, because of the situation right now with COVID-19 and how we know things are going, we wanted to release the broadcast player out as soon as possible. It was initially ready for a launch later on, but we feel that there's a lot of benefit for this product right now. And we know that it's going to be useful for a lot of different environments out there. The broadcast player, unlike what Signagelive normally does, which is have one player communicate as if it was a device and then have multiple devices on a network, the broadcast player is one device which can be broadcast to however many different URLs that you want to. So you could potentially have tens, hundreds, thousands of people receiving the same message using exactly the same URL, as I have done today, just delivering that URL to you. So you can then open that up and look at it, and it will be identical to what everyone else is seeing. Obviously, there's no limitation. You can have as many of these broadcast players as you want, but it's a different type of communication to a one-on-one with a device. This is more out to a broader conversation or a broader community of people. So that's what the broadcast player is, and the difference between that and our standard player. How much does the browser player cost? Well, it's free. Until June, the end of June, there is no charge for this. You don't need to be a pre-existing user. You don't need to already have a Signagelive network or be a reseller or anything along those lines. We will set this up for you for free. The main reason, obviously, is because it is new and we know there's benefits to it now, and we want to give you a good test environment, a good test time to go and see where this may be beneficial to you. One of the nice elements of the broadcast player is you can start communicating out to however many ranges of people that you need to. And even if there's not an environment or a situation that we've thought this could be beneficial, it's up to you, and you can go and test it in whatever experience that you want. So we don't have a pricing structure written down per se as what this will look like when it does eventually come out of its free period. But most likely it's going to be based around volume of new connections per month or whatever duration it might be. There'll be more information to come on that. But most importantly, the biggest takeaway right now is that it's free and you can go and grab it and use it for whatever you want to and just play around with it or offer it to customers, clients, or anyone that you're speaking to that this could be of benefit to. So what does the broadcast player support? The broadcast player supports a whole range of different apps, images, etc. that we'll go through. But one of the main ones I just wanted to mention here today is the marketplace. So the Signagelive marketplace has a whole range of free content for you to take, and there's no limit to that. And again, if you're not an existing Signagelive user of it at all, this is still free to you. Some of them that are listed on the left here: clocks, weather, calendar integration, which will connect to either Google Calendars or Office 365, menu board designs, notice boards, Gecko boards, Power BI, YouTube, Grow, and a whole range of news applications. That's not a kind of a full list. There are a range of different apps, and actually in the next day or so, we will be releasing out a couple more apps which are more event-based, so things like Cinco de Mayo, Mother's Day, which is coming up in the US, not in the UK. Important to make that definition, otherwise people get terrified. But it just allows us to have a lot more content in there for you to use and keep your screens up to date. So that's all inclusive, and that will work on a broadcast player, regardless of what app it is within that marketplace. So layout designs. With the broadcast player that I showed you a moment ago, and you can probably see on your screen if you've clicked on that link, there are multiple zones of content running at the same time. They can range from the images, the marketplace assets, URLs, whatever you're actually looking to deliver, all at the same time. So just like it would do with the standard license, the browser player supports that and supports all of those features as well. What does the broadcast player support? So the only thing it doesn't support is video files, and that's video files proper, i.e. an MP4 file or an MOV file uploaded to Signagelive and then delivered to the screen. If you're familiar with Signagelive, you'll know that we can do this on any of the other devices. The only difference between a broadcast player and those other devices is that a broadcast player isn't a device in itself. It is just delivering that URL. So, which is the reason we cannot currently deliver direct video files. However, that being said, YouTube works, not a problem at all. Actually, we had a use case a little while ago. We were talking to someone that said that they wanted to deliver videos. So what they did is they just created YouTube videos but had them unlisted. So they're not necessarily visible on YouTube unless someone had the specific link, but they can still utilize that to deliver their video content on a broadcast player for Signagelive. The other thing just to mention, and a good segue into that, is that the broadcast player allows for YouTube. It's obviously it's not hidden in any way. So these are not links. There's nowhere that's promoting these links, but it's not designed for sensitive information at the moment. So it's not that I would suggest you put something that's super sensitive and internal. The broadcast player is more of an open communication to whoever has that link. So just something to bear in mind when we're talking about where the broadcast player is going to be of benefit. So what does that mean that it does support? So images, any kind of image file that you want to upload and view, marketplace widgets, as we've talked about already, RSS feeds, so text tickers scrolling along the bottom, as you see in an example that I showed in the layout designer, IPTV stream, so any kind of streaming service. Actually, in actual fact, we could have done a bit of an Inception thing and had this YouTube stream straight onto the app, which would have probably given me a bit of a headache, but the concept is there and that would work. And then finally, web pages, so any URL that you want to deliver as well. Who can use the broadcast player? Well, the broadcast player is suitable for a range of environments, which we've kind of discussed. So if you're looking to display a channel of content scheduled to a broad range of viewers, the broadcast player is going to be a good fit. What we've done here is just thought of some examples that may be of benefit to you. So, for example, teachers looking to communicate with students or parents. This was an interesting one when it came up as a use case, because obviously right now in the environment that we have, a lot of kids, mine included, are working from home, or working from home, as you call it. They're learning from home, and teachers are trying to communicate out with both parents and children on what's coming up, what's next on the agenda. And this is a great way to keep that communication going, because the parents can just have the tab open and flick over to it every now and then to get new and up-to-date information. CEOs or communication managers communicating with their staff. This is a fairly common request and something we've dealt with a lot here at Signagelive. But the ability to go out and communicate with people that maybe aren't office-based at the moment, and a lot more people are working from home, again, myself included. So it's all about increasing and broadening that communication structure that they can have. The other thing to mention whilst we're at this point is, if you are already using Signagelive and you're here, and I can see there's 13 of you, so thank you very much for joining. If you're already using Signagelive and you've got, let's say a few players or 10 players or 100 players or whatever it might be, this can also be a great tandem working alongside those, because you might say, actually, I've got my digital signage proper with Signagelive, but then what I'd also like to do is have a channel that we can take some of the pre-existing playlists that we've already made and already communicating out to our locations, but we're going to have that as a broader environment for those that happen to be working from home, or they're even just traveling, or traveling around to different locations with for the work that they do. The last one, delivery hub communications with employees. Just another example we were thinking of. Obviously, there's a lot of delivery going on at the moment in terms of home delivery services, food services, postal workers, Amazon, obviously a big one. Just the ability to be able to communicate out to those currently in the field about new safety regulations, new information around that. All of that's going to be really useful and a perfect fit for something like this broadcast player. So with that, we're going to go into a brief demonstration and change that content on the screen. If there are any questions, drop them in now because we'll go into this in a second. I'm just going to quickly go over to the hold screen whilst I set this up, so bear with us just 2 seconds. All right, there we go. So music hopefully has stopped there and you won't be hearing both of it. So what we're on right now is the Signagelive broadcast player website, which you can go to, which is signagelive.com/broadcast. I will just drop that in the chat there for anyone who wants to click along with me. You can go in and have a look at the content that's within that. And there's a video briefly explaining what we're going over today, some more information around the pricing, some FAQs in there and the features. So if you want to go and remind yourself, this could be a good place to go back and just get yourself up to date. So with this broadcast player that we've got up and running here on the screen, we've got 3 zones. On the left-hand side, we've got one zone, which actually happens to be running a combination of SceneSpire content. SceneSpire have kindly given away a kind of automatic updated feed related to coronavirus, which will update itself. So there's an example of that running on the screen. We've also got a CNN app running some news content on the right-hand side, and we've got a clock widget. Bearing in mind this is just one example of what you could achieve, really we're going to go through this as an example, but if you don't want this kind of design, or you don't want multiple zones, or you actually don't want a background and you just want to have 3 or 4, however many dedicated zones in this URL, it's completely up to you. This is just an example of what can be achieved. So we're going to go and update some content here today and show you what we've got currently running, and then we're going to go and change it, and then you should see as well at home, for those of you that are kind of working alongside, you'll be able to see that changes on the broadcast player that I've sent out to you as we do that. So I'm going to go over to the Signagelive dashboard here. This is just a dashboard we've made up as an example with our broadcast player singular there, and it's got the URL beside it, so it's nice and easy to go and grab that if you want to share it again. Now, I'm not going to go through every piece of the Signagelive experience today. If you do need that, if you need someone to take you through the platform from top to bottom, we're more than happy to do that. But this is kind of more of a broad and open conversation around how Signagelive works and what the concept is around Signagelive. So as I mentioned, within these zones, we've got 3 of them. We deem these are basically playlists and independent playlists that are running into each zone. So what we're going to do on the dashboard is go over to the content drop down, and there is a tool called playlists, and in there I can actually go and manage all of the playlists that I've made in the past. So you can see we've got a clock, a menu test, news playlist, and the broadcast player playlist itself, and a range of different playlists can be made, and you can make as many of these as you want. So we've just made 4 as an example here, but obviously as many of these as you need, not a problem at all. I'm going to go and open up this broadcast player playlist, and that will then populate into what I predominantly deem this is where you spend most of your time in Signagelive. This is where your content is updated, managed, changed. You can see on the right hand side here we've got a list of the content that is currently set to be published on those screens. In the central section here we've got a preview of all of the content we could potentially use, and on the left hand side I can click on any of these folders to then load up that specific content. So it's just a nice, easy way to manage the way that your screen looks and how everything runs. Now, obviously, if you do want to upload something from the marketplace, you can hit the plus button on the top left-hand corner. You've got the marketplace in there, which we've mentioned, and again, a range of free apps and content that's in there for you to go and grab. All you need to do is select the asset that you want. So let's say, for example, we want to go and grab a news asset. We can then go into that, select the news app that we want to utilize, such as BBC, and then hit Add to Signagelive. That will then turn up into your recently added, so nice and easy to just go and update and amend the content as you need it to. But we've already uploaded some of our content in advance here, so we've got some examples of widgets which are Corona related. So what we could do is actually say, I'm going to delete off these 2 assets, the ones that we have currently running right now on this left-hand screen, and we're going to remove these. So I don't have any content right now ready to display. We haven't made the changes yet because we haven't saved it. So this is all about pre-preparing, getting that content ready to display. And then I can take my content that I want to now display and click and drag it over to the right hand side. So we might have 3 different images, for example. These are actually the apps we were talking about earlier. So I can actually double click on any of these assets and go in and change the text. So this is another example of what's existing in the marketplace. If you don't have content creation to hand, or you don't have the ability to go in and create Photoshop, you can go in here and just amend text as you need it to be. These are obviously Corona related, but obviously there's a whole range of non-Corona related ones that are just kind of more generic in terms of what you can have in there, whether it just be communication to remind people of what's going on. So we've added in our 3 apps, and we want these to rotate around in a circle on that left-hand screen. All I need to do now to make that change is hit the Save Playlist button. Once I've saved it, it will come up with a prompt to let me know that if I've already published this playlist out, which we know we have, it's already been set up on that left-hand side of the screen. And as many of you that are online right now and have that URL open, it will make that change for us automatically. So now, depending on how often the content check has been set, this one has been set to once every minute. Within a period of time, a small period of time, this content will then update on our broadcast player. We'll see that this left screen is replaced with the content that we've just changed. So that's a very basic overview of how all of this works together. The same thing coincides with the top right and the top bottom right sides that you can see here, or however many zones that you have. But the simplistic style of it is you can just go and drag and drop, hit the save button, and this could potentially affect, if we're talking about larger numbers, it could be, hundreds, thousands of different devices that are pulling this information directly. So whilst we wait for that to change, I'm just going to give you guys a couple of seconds here. If you've got any questions or anything that you want to ask, feel free to ask it now, specifically around the broadcast player, because we'll come to a natural end on this unless there's any other questions, and then we'll kind of open it up for more of a Q&A session. If there aren't any questions today, that's absolutely fine. This is kind of this session is booked to be an hour, but it could be 10 minutes, it could be 20 minutes, it could be 40 minutes, it doesn't matter. It's just dependent on what questions we have on the day. And these will also be archived, so there'll be a playlist of these that you can go back and rewatch or share and use later on. So just so you're aware of kind of the regular scheduling that we'll be doing this. And again, that's Thursday, 3 p.m. BST. Set yourself a reminder, grab a drink, and we'll come and have a chat about whatever it is you're looking for. Okay, there's just a massive thunderstorm next to me, so if the power goes out and all of a sudden I disappear, you know what's just happened. We can only hope that it doesn't. So whilst we're waiting for that to change over, just a couple of additional functionalities just to mention whilst we're here. So for example, if I double click on one of these assets, what I have is currently this is set to display. I do have some additional tools, however, so I can go into validity and say, well, actually, I'm in here on April the 30th, but I don't want this content to change until May the 13th. And I actually don't want it to run all the time. I want it to expire at the end of May. So by doing this and hitting OK, you can see that tab has now turned blue to let me know that it's not currently displaying on the screen. That will be green when it is on the screen, amber a few days before it expires, and it'll be red once it's expired completely. So by doing that, you can actually plan and schedule and arrange days, weeks, months in advance without having to go here every day and make those changes that you need to. On the other element, if I double click on another zone, there's the ability to go into reoccurrence. So if there's a message that you want to remind people of that happens every Thursday and Friday, and you want that to start from X and Y time, you can also pre-plan all of that in. What we've actually created now is a very unique piece of content that's only going to run from the 13th to the 31st, and during that time is only going to run for a Thursday and a Friday in that time period. So just another couple of pieces of information and just simple solutions that make it nice and easy to plan well in advance. So we're going to go over here. I'm just going to quickly refresh my browser. It's taking a little bit longer than expected to load, but it shouldn't be too much longer. So is there any other questions in the chat around the broadcast player before we do go further into anything else? And I'll swap over my screen in a moment here. Is adding a security feature to the broadcast player license on the development roadmap currently? Good question, Jason. It is a potential. It's not something that we have written in stone at the moment. This obviously is a fairly quickly launched product just to make sure we had it out in the right time. But there's already been some communication around this being a requirement. I definitely see a benefit in it, and the way that Signagelive works when it comes to development is about developing for the broadest community first. So if this is a real requirement that a lot of people have, and I believe it probably will be the case, then that will probably be something that we'll look at once it's fully launched. But yeah, I think it would be a great addition to this functionality, and you should most probably see something like that in the roadmap going forward. Thanks for your question. Just flick over here whilst we're waiting for any other questions to come through. But again, as I said, if you want to remind yourself that you're going to happen, set a reminder in your calendar, whether it's Google or whatever you're using, then let us know when you want to make those changes. Just going back to our screen here, we can go to the broadcast player now. And as you can see, that content has changed. It should do the same on yours as well. So if you're already following along, click on that link and you'll see that content is now updated to the content that we mentioned a moment ago. Slightly different in terms of aspect ratio, but you can see it hasn't squashed or flattened it. It's just purely because the aspect ratio is slightly different on the zones here. But it's just a good example of how we can change this really, really quickly. If there are any other questions around the broadcast player, we'll go for them now. If not, I'll open this up to anyone around any other questions aside from Signagelive. And again, I've done a lot of talking so far. It won't be flat out communication for the rest of it. So if I'm just here for a couple of silent moments, then that's absolutely not a problem at all. And if it's 5 minutes and no one said anything, then we'll kind of wrap up and archive this for you to use later on. Just on that, whilst we're waiting for any other questions, if you do have any other subjects that you want to discuss or think would be beneficial to do something on, let us know. We've got some in mind already, but obviously if there's anything in particular that's already being requested by you, then we'll put that in advance and we'll try and schedule that around and remind you obviously what's coming up in the coming weeks in terms of this open session. Whilst we are here as well, you can also go to the Signagelive website, signagelive.com. There is a kind of pre-designed webinar that you can go and attend, so you can go submit that. We can actually go over to the website here, and you can see on the top there is a selection for webinars. So if you do want to learn about the platform in a little bit more detail, you can go there. Obviously, the next step on from that is you can come and reach out to us, and we can have a one-to-one discussion with you around how Signagelive works if you aren't already familiar. If you are familiar and you've just got some outstanding questions, then feel free to come and ask us as well. We want to be as open as possible when it comes to talking to you and giving you the information that you need. I did say at the beginning of this that I was going to have a coffee ready, but actually I drank it before it started, so it's just been sat here as an empty cup. All right, what I think I'll do next time is actually have a little Q&A slider. Just making sure there's nothing else to note here, but I think we've covered everything in terms of some of the basics. If there's anything on here that you want to see from a platform perspective, then let me know. Obviously, one of the things just to mention, just aside from that, there's that thunder again. Just aside from that is that the broadcast player turns up as one device on the dashboard. So obviously within normal Signagelive environment, there'd be a whole range of them on there. But obviously in this case, because it is just the one device, you'll just see that displaying there. Do you plan on supporting MP4s in the future? So just to be 100% clear on that, the MP4s are supported on any other device. So all of the supported devices that are out there in Signagelive now, such as system on chip screens, independent devices, Windows devices, even down to Fire Sticks. The specific difference with the broadcast player is that it doesn't have the capability of holding those. There is a potential way we could get MP4s to work. It would have to be a further conversation, but Frank, if you want to have that conversation with us, we're more than happy to arrange a call. I know we've got Ian on standby in the chat there that can speak to you directly or offer you some information. If you do want to get in touch with me after this, I'm more than happy to receive emails on that, so you can contact Tim at signagelive.com. We'll probably make a specific email for that, but in this case, if you want to reach out to me directly to arrange a call on it, Frank, more specifically, more than happy to do that as well. Okay. So what I'm going to do in this case, I'm just going to put myself on the hold screen for a moment, and I'll turn the music down so you don't have to listen to that. But if there are any other questions, we'll stay live for another 5 minutes. If there aren't, thank you very much for joining, and we'll be in touch if you need anything from us. Feel free to reach out to us. You can go to the signagelive.com/broadcast, which again, I'll just link here for you. You can head down to the bottom and complete and submit the form, which will allow you to contact us directly, and we can set you up a network with a broadcast player. If you already have a pre-existing network, then we can set that up for you as well, just for you to do some testing or send out to anyone that you think this would be beneficial for right now. There's nothing stopping you from having this in a live environment and testing it for the next few months just to get yourself au fait with the platform and make sure it is for you. So I'm going to take myself over to the hold screen now. I'm going to keep ourselves live for another 5 minutes again, just to make sure that there's no additional questions. And if there are, I'll come back and answer those. And then we'll wrap up at the end of that 5-minute period. Question come in, can you change the name of the broadcast player if it has multiple on the dashboard, or is it always showing the URL? Good question. So what we can do within the dashboard is we can go in and, need to log in. We can go in and change the names of the devices. So obviously if you have multiple broadcast players, then you can go into this naming convention and change that. If you're already using Signagelive and you've got your naming conventions for other devices, it's the exact same process. So we'll go into the site, give that name for the player, give the address details. I happen to have put the URL in as a line item, which then turns up on that dashboard, just because it's really simple and easy to then go and grab the URL you need for that player. But there's no limitation. You don't have to have that. If I remove this now and then hit save, or even called it broadcast player 1, if you happen to have multiples of them, I can then go to the dashboard and refresh my screen, and then you can see it's changed to broadcast player 1 with no URL. So the choice is completely yours. Before I forget, I'm going to go put that URL back, because I will forget. I'll forget what the URL is. I'll go grab it here, just so I can remind myself at a later date. There we go. Go back to the dashboard and refresh. And there we go. URL's back on. So hopefully that's been a really useful overview from the broadcast player. Again, as I said, you can be able to come back and grab this whenever you need to, or share it with whoever you want to. So feel free to do that. We'll be doing these again every Thursday, and we'll kind of be releasing a bit of a script as to what we'll be covering in the coming weeks. And if there is anything that's more vital to you that needs to be answered quicker, then feel free to reach out to us directly. I'm going to put myself on the hold screen. We'll keep ourselves live for another 5 minutes. And if that covers all of the questions that have been asked, then perfect. We'll close off there. If you do have any other questions, then do let me know. I'll pop into the chat just to make sure people are aware if they're just logging in at this time. They'll be a little bit late, but then they can obviously ask any questions. So we're going to go over to the whole screen. Thanks very much for joining me, and we'll hopefully speak to you again next Thursday. Would help if I unmuted myself. Sorry about that. Do we anticipate the pricing post June 30th for the broadcast player to be available by the end of May? I don't know the answer to that one just yet, but we'll be able to come back to you and let you know. I think right now we're kind of just putting all of that together. So from a pricing perspective, we'll be able to give you more information as soon as the time comes. But we'll reach out to you directly, Jason, and kind of give you some more information once, as soon as we have that. So anything we know, we'll let you know as soon as we can do. All right, that looks like all the questions we're going to have. Thank you very much again for joining us on the very first stream from Signage Live. If you do have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us again. Any of the available contact methods is absolutely fine. Check us out at signagelive.com, and we'll see you again next Thursday. Thanks very much for joining us.